Being a live music venue, being a 2 a.m. pub, the lockdown just destroyed us. And coming back from the lockdown, we weren't allowed to stay open till 2 in the morning. Social distancing, there was no live music. It borderline tanked us at Fernando's. We came out of the lockdown, we did our best to survive with the hours we were allotted and what we were allowed to do, but the cry for live music was every day. People coming in and our hands were tied, and that's what we just kept saying. It's on the province of BC, it's on the government of Canada. You know, when it can come back, it's gonna come back. Like, don't lose faith. And that following winter after the lockdown, after we reopened, we crunched some numbers, the owners and I, and we realized it wasn't feasible to even stay open for the winter. So we closed down for 6.5 months over the winter of 2020, I think, winter 21. And just all of us got a big break. Some people started trying other avenues like delivery services and getting jobs. I know some of my employees got jobs at liquor stores, weed shops, the things that were essential and could stay open. And I mean, we lucked out. I'm in a band and we were allowed to, the owners let us set up in Fernando's, and that became our jam space. And when we got to reopen after that, the following spring, we talked to people that were coming in and they were like, man, we would walk by here on Wednesdays and just hear live music, and we got really amped because we thought, no way, it's gonna open. And it was just like, nah, that was just us making noise.
Yeah, I don't know, it's weird. I'm hoping things get better after things open up again, but yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be starting at ground zero again. I mean,
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, the pandemic really wiped it out. It's a shame too, because Kelowna specifically relies a lot on its hospitality industry when tourism season kicks in. And that's always been a thing here. So with people being, concerned about traveling across borders, whether it's a provincial border or whatnot, it's really just flattened the markets here in Kelowna, generally speaking. And so in turn, that's gonna have an effect on, the scene, if you will. So it's ground zero now. We'll have to see what kind of innovation comes out of this. And I do believe there will be some. I think that with heavy metal specifically, and even rock, has a massive community effect. And that's part of the reason why it's survived so many decades and so many different ups and downs. I mean, so I've no doubt in my mind it'll come back. It'll come back with some, some new blood. It'll come back with some new innovation, new ideas. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there, and I hope to play a role in it as well at some point.
People have had some time to think this over, so hopefully some awesome stuff comes out of this. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure people are really anxious to get back to shows. I know I am. So.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
There was an immediate decline in the music scene. Everyone needed a bit of time to sort of figure out how music was going to look in the pandemic world. But there's definitely been a growth near the end of the pandemic, we can say. Once people have figured out how to work with, what's happening, and once people have figured out how to continue making music, we've really realized that people want that music. As soon as the music scene started to take its dive, people were talking about it. People were noticing the music scene was on its way out, and we heard people weren't happy about it. And we've got all of these new venues in Penticton trying to revive that scene that did dive. We've got some great venues like Brexit's trying to start some stuff up again. Barking Parrots getting that live music going again. Fire Hall has always tried to hold on to the live music, and we're seeing more and more people who have really missed that live music scene talking about it and trying to revive it after a short dive.
And it's not just so much the community support around it, but even the artists themselves. You know, during the peak of the pandemic, there's no shows, no venues, no nothing. So it kind of seems like a lot of these more cover style bands started working towards more original content, which is really cool. Because, you know, what better way to get over pandemic blues than by creating something new, right?
Right about
I mean, that's especially what we did. You know, we couldn't play shows, so hey, let's release one demo every month and just rock it out from there.
So obviously I couldn't hold Armstrong Metal Fest 2 years in a row. The first year we got shut down. Everybody got shut down. The second year we didn't even make an attempt because I had no faith that we were going to be able to have an event. It started to look like we could, and I mean, we might have been able to pull it off, but it was too much of a gamble, and the event itself is enough of a size that we can't just gamble with an event that big, especially with deposits and everything. So yeah, the way that it affected, and then the other things that it affected was that, you know, we practice time with my band Odin Fist, for example. We couldn't practice as often. Well, we couldn't even practice for a long time. So when we were allowed to, we did. But yeah, so practice time was down, events were down, there was no bands coming through. You know, I'm used to seeing a lot of my friends from all over Western Canada, all over Canada in general, at least touring by and coming to say hi or play a show. So yeah, it was isolating.
Well, it definitely caused some changes. I started getting less artists coming in to just record themselves, but more artists who write and don't really know what to do with it because they've got this time and they've got money that they didn't previously have, or it could just be a lifelong dream that they wanted to do and they finally get around to doing it. So I've had some artists come in who just want to record their song and they don't know where to start. And so we would come in and just help them, bring in the musicians, bring in the session players, help them with the song composition, and get the song rocking and rolling. But it's also affected things such as, well, because it's changed, right? A lot of people started recording themselves at home, and that changed the type of market that is coming to me. So rather than people coming to record themselves here, what I'm getting is people who basically need help with their recordings at home. So I've gotten a few new clients for mixing and mastering, where they just record themselves at home. They've got actually fairly low budget equipment, and they're able to make it sound really good because they're not falling into typical traps that a lot of new people fall into. They're not making a lot of the same mistakes that a lot of amateur recording engineers would make because I'm able to help them along the lines. So yeah, it's definitely changed the type of business that comes into the studio, but it didn't really impact in a way of like more business or less business.
It was a roller coaster. It was very interesting when you do something your whole life, and musicians and artists and creative people really tend to, you know, live by their art. So when that's something that, you know, completely makes you who you are, and that's your identity, and then it gets somewhat restricted or taken away, it's extremely hard to deal with. So before the pandemic, I was working at our local arena, and obviously that closed, and we lost all our stadium concerts and hockey games and stuff like that. So I lost that job, and then with gigs being canceled and not being able to book shows for our artists on the label and stuff like that, that was another huge hit. So And then myself as a musician, all my gigs were canceled, and yeah, so it was like life altering. And the good thing about it is that it really gave me a chance to live what I call like a normal life, not always being obsessed with music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was the first time where I actually got to like take a step back and not have to, you know, be in the studio every night till 2 in the morning, and, you know, on the road every weekend with the bands and stuff like that. And I got my Canada Day back and Halloween back and New Year's back and stuff like that. So that was really interesting. At first it was weird to get used to, but then once you did, it was like, you know, this is kind of nice. So, you know, that was the upside, but the downside was the roller coaster of emotions. And man, when, like I mentioned, when that makes up, you know, your entire life and who you are as a person, and that gets taken away, you really have to do a lot of like inward looking and figure out what's really important in life. And not that music isn't, I mean, for me, I still prioritize it, you know, almost the top of my list, right? But you just get that chance to really look at the bigger picture and kind of see that there is a bit more to life. And, you know, so it was a bit of a blessing and a curse in the same time. I don't know how other artists felt. I've talked to some that have literally gone through like the worst depressions of their lives, you know, and I've talked to people that have had their entire income stripped away from them. And it's been hard for a lot of people. And I know some people that had a bit of an attitude like I do, where they really enjoyed that break, you know, and that time to kind of do something else for a bit. So, yeah, I'd say it's a roller coaster of emotions.
I was affected by COVID. I mean, on a personal level, I'd have to go to pre-COVID, about 2016. I sobered up. I just couldn't take it anymore. I went through a big world meltdown, and yeah, I just needed to change my life. And the weird thing is like, nobody talks about it, but sobriety is insanely lonely. It's, especially your first couple years, it's just like all your friends disappear, you know? Or people that you realize weren't so much your friends, they were just people who also like to get messed up, and, you know, misery loves company. So one weird thing that I did is like, I was in a bar more when I sobered up than when I was drinking, because one way that I coped with that is I started 3 bands, you know, and I just hit the ground running with music. I filled up my, you know, and I had the time and the energy because I wasn't, you know, hungover all Saturday. So all of a sudden I have a whole Saturday to fill with like awesome music stuff, and or Sunday or whatever. And so that was my way of dealing with it. But, you know, like, that was a big outlet for me, is like, you know, just going, it was so empowering walking into a room and knowing that you weren't gonna drink, and, you know, crushing a performance, and then like, you know, yeah, it was so empowering at the end of each night to walk out of that bar and not having had a drink. And so like when COVID came along, it was really hard. Like I felt lonely again, you know, and it was just like, that was my community, and that was my spiritual outlet, was bringing people together and performing and seeing other people perform and stuff like that, and giving people their shot at doing what they do. Yeah, and it just, and then we all existed online, and it just became toxic online syndrome, you know, like where we weren't, because when you talk about stuff, you know, in person, you know, you can see each other's faces, and, sorry, excuse me, and you can kind of add in on parts and see where you agree, you know, and like, and I don't know, COVID really took us further down a rabbit hole that we were already falling down as a society.
Major corporations have realized that they don't have to have as many people sitting in offices, and it's really changed the corporate landscape, work landscape for sure. Another thing that I noticed was as a musician and somebody heavily involved in the music industry, it really made me feel like we're not essential. And I know that's not the intention, and maybe I just picked up the wrong vibe on that, but you know, it really brings you into reality of like if the world comes to an end, you know, yeah, we do need musicians and entertainers, but really, I mean, other than morale and inspiration, we're not doctors, we're not scientists, we're not, you know what I mean? So it was, they always told you growing up, when they'd ask you, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you said, oh, I want to be a musician. They say, oh, you better have a backup plan. You know, this is why you have a backup plan, because at the end of the day, you know, we're very disposable almost. It's sad to say, but from a big picture, you know, standpoint, it's kind of how it goes. Thank God to the people that supported us through the pandemic, and you know, those hardcore music lovers and listeners that, you know, even did everything they could to support the artist throughout all this, because, you know, it was those people that really kept everybody going. I mean, without a doubt.
We need those songs of hope, you know, more than ever. And when you're an artist who is struggling to have their needs met, it's hard to create those songs. I'm like emotional about it because it's this biggest struggle, you know. And so for me, I'm blessed. I have abundance. I live in a community who keeps bringing me abundance, which is so fantastic. And so I feel like a lot of what's happening on my new album is gonna be hope. I've got a hopeful song about living side by side, you know, as opposed to clamoring on top, you know. And musicians and community, we need to be working side by side. We're not trying to create some kind of fighting against each other. We've got lots of musicians and lots of art, and we do have an abundance of places we could perform if we were able to.
My principal, Mr. Bischoff, shout out to Mr. Bischoff, he is amazing. Like, we wouldn't be where we are without him. He lets us put on all the shows, and big shout out to Mr. Saunders for lending us vocal monitors and like bringing us together. I wouldn't know anybody without Mr. Saunders, and there's definitely a lot they're doing at my school. I don't know about the other schools. I mean, some principals aren't the greatest because I've been around in different schools, but RSS, like, they're doing a lot to make sure that we're supported, and yeah, they're doing great. I want to bring back the energy and like the passion back into this music, you know? Like, I want to set up in a Walmart parking lot if I have to and just like play music for 10 kids if that's what I have to do. Like, I just want that passion and that energy, and like, I just want it all to come back, and yeah.
Music is a destination. You're going to watch this band, so you could set up something anywhere and people will come. Like, build it and they will come, right? Yeah, it's live music, concerts, and scene is more so of a you know, any location would work.
I'm just praying we can all just hold on and keep pushing to get us back to live shows and live interaction without all this stuff that's going on. That's my it's killing, it's crushing everyone. I know I'm not exempt or making myself special, but we're all trying to get through to get to that, what we live for. The family, the unity, the vibe, the music, the whole thing. It's an experience, it's our life. I got no reason to go to work if I can't go out Friday night to see a show. If I just have to come home and sit home, and well, what the hell am I working for? To go to work and go to sleep and go to work? No. So I can go out, so I can buy a new guitar, so I can play in a band, so I can see my bros, so I can buy some merch. That's what I live for. So, if I could say anything, let's hope things keep improving, because we're anxious to get back to the family. And it's been hard. We've lost a lot of brothers, sisters, been tough. It's been tough. A few of us didn't make it. Glad to be here, and we're honored to hold the torch for the old school, because we see what the younger guys are doing, and we're proud to say, hey,
yeah, we're liking it.
We're loving it. I'm open. Yeah. Let's go. Anything that keeps it going, I'm down. It's metal.
One of the best shows I put on was actually a basement show of all the things. So in the basement of Stereo Renegades, where we were playing a couple of years ago, we had a whole schwack of people in there. Like the whole basement was full, and we jammed out the whole set, and everyone, and the kids were there, and they were dancing and grooving, and like they're like, it was just so nice to see everybody enjoying the music, and it was all originals as well. So you know, like that was the best show that we ever had. Was I mean, that was here in Kelowna. Yeah, it was a basement show, and everybody gave us mad props afterwards and said it was just the best show that they had seen in a long time, and yeah, it was just a nice feeling, you know. So yeah, it was a basement show.
So the future of the music scene it's tough to predict, but I think to predict anything, the way to go about it would be to look at the past and look at the trends that are going on and analyze which of those trends you think are gonna continue to grow and which of those trends are gonna decline. For instance, I think it's pretty obvious that CD sales are declining, and in the future, CD sales just won't be a thing anymore, just like 8 tracks and tapes, and you know, it's just they're gonna go away completely pretty soon. But what is rising is digital streaming, and that's another pretty obvious one. However, what's going on with digital streaming is these platforms are starting to pay less and less and less, and so it's less of an incentive for artists to upload their music to the digital streaming platforms. So where the future of the music industry is going, I think, is more towards social media and establishing fan base based on your personality. So people don't just want to listen to music anymore. They want to have a relationship with the artist. And within the last few years, like the last 10 years, I'd say, that has been made possible because like there's artists in Kelowna that I've never met them, but I know what they had for breakfast, right? Because they posted it on Facebook. Ultimately, I think what people want is to be entertained, and the possibilities, the platforms that are available now to entertain people are a lot more diversified. And I think in the future, it's going to continue on that trend where there's less of an emphasis on the music itself. For instance, like I don't want to say less emphasis on music, even though I just did say that, but see, like 10, 20 years ago, I think it was more about the music, less about the artist, because you didn't have access to all artists in the world and unlimited access to their music like I do on Spotify. 10, 20 years ago, you buy an album for like 20 bucks or whatever, 25 bucks, you maybe buy 4 or 5 albums a year, and that's your music. That's what you listen to, and you listen to it over and over and over again. And so you listen to that music because you love that music. You don't necessarily establish a relationship with the artist. Whereas the difference now is I mean, the music is certainly still an important part, but the artist and their personality is also an important part, and people are connecting with the artist because they like them as a person.
I also think too that it's gone on for such a long time that some people's habits may have changed a little bit too, about how they consume their media and their entertainment as well. Beyond, you know, some people's concerns about, you know, things opening up again and things like that, I think there's also a measure of people's behaviors that have been altered slightly as well. So I could see that being a bit of a problem in the beginning, but I think time, the great equalizer, will straighten that one out.
Kelowna doesn't really market itself as a music city. Like, I've been around to a bunch of places. I've been to Toronto, I've been to New York, I've been to Nashville a bunch of times, and like Nashville promotes itself and markets itself as music city. Kelowna markets itself as golf, wineries, water skiing. That's what they promote. So music is kind of an add-on. People don't get on an airplane or drive here going, I'm going out and I'm gonna go drinking, I'm gonna go see some music. And that's where Kelowna has always struggled, because They don't market it. Like I said, it's like an add-on. So you don't have like a dedicated audience of like hardcore music fans that want to go up and down our main strip of Bernard and go into every bar and are just waiting to hear whoever and willing to pay whatever cover charge is at the door. That's not happening. If you go to these other cities, musicians work every night, but you have a guaranteed audience. Kelowna doesn't have that. So it does struggle in the fact that people don't come here to watch music. It also struggles because it's not on the Trans-Canada Highway. You have to try and come to Kelowna. As much as we all love Kelowna and we're all from here, you have to try and come here. We'd do a lot better if we were on the Trans-Canada Highway. Like Banff is a much smaller town than us, but they got a lot of music, but they're on the Trans-Canada Highway. Makes a difference, right?
Whether you're selling beer or food with beer and an artist, those can all like congeal and into something very special if you're conscious about it. But if all you're trying to do is like add a little ambience to your beer tasting room, like, you know, maybe don't. Or maybe, or you know, whatever, fine. Like, if, like there are those people that can sit in the corner and play Wonderwall, and you know, oh, I know that song, you know. But and like, there's tons of those venues right now. But are they really venues? Or are they like, you know, like they're karaoke with like acoustic guitars, you know. Anyways, I feel like I'm being really like negative right now.